Hello. Hello. Tim's back.
Oh, yes. It's a long trip.
So today we were going to be, the subject today was going to be, again, we were trying to get the admin conversation going, and Justine is pulled in so many directions, and she got pulled away today again. So and that's fine. She said she will be here on the 14th. So we have Justine and admin on the 14th, and then eventually we'll have Justine and the other people in admin do a little piece. We'll put it all together and we'll have something up on the YouTube channel, right, Tim?
Yep.
That will be like, here's the introduction. What I really want to see is one that has, for each one of the offices, the admin that does kind of like a little mini tour. Here's where when you come into the office, here's where you can use the conference room. Here's where the copy machine is, and I'm here to help. And here's the things that we do as admins to make your job easier, because that's what we're here to do, is to serve you. So we'll have that, I promise. In the meantime, I was talking with, I think it was Dana today. Was it Dana? Who? Hang on.
I think it was me, Carol. Hannah, right? We were texting earlier.
Okay,
yeah.
It was you, Hannah. Yeah, and Hannah was in. Hannah, I picked her brain because we were talking about something else that we were following up from 100 Days to Greatness, and I said, well, what would what are questions that you have, like at this point, like what are things that you'd like us in from the mentor side to talk to you about? And you gave me a great list. So it was FSBOs, which came up the other day. That was Dana that had sold the house to a FSBO, and all of a sudden realized in her first purchase that she was doing both sides of the transaction with somebody who was doing like nothing. And so we said we're going to eventually talk about that. I think it'd be great for us to talk about that today. What else was it, Hannah, that you were suggesting?
I mentioned negotiation skills.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I mention? I mentioned like goal setting, like smart goal setting, realistic goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Like how often we should be kind of changing up our goals. Oh, there was one more. I don't remember what it was now. Geographical farming, which I saw that there's an ATA on that. I just started watching that video actually. So
did you? Okay.
Yeah, I started watching it. I haven't finished it yet, but I did start it.
There's actually was another class on geographical farming that was an early one that we did early on in our ATAs, and Jonathan O'Gorman did it, and he's like the king of geographical farming.
Yeah, he does my neighborhood.
if we could ever get him back again, that would be fantastic. Actually, one of the other agents this week sent me a door hanger that one of our agents had in their quote farm geographic area, saying that if you list with me, you get, I think it was 6 yards of mulch for free. So people, you're out there doing it, I mean, that's geographical farming it's a really interesting kind of an interesting subject, because we don't really own an area, but some people really own an area. You see signs and they go up sign after sign after sign. Like I think I was telling you guys the other night, Hannah, when we were talking about geographical farming, I don't know which class this was, because I think I've been in 3 or 4 of them since then, about when Jonathan first started. He was 19 years old and he just picked some areas and started farming. And it's a marathon. Geographical farming is a marathon. It is not a sprint whatsoever. So if you get into it, and it's not cheap to do it. And it's a pain in the butt, because you have to comply by all of the all of the US Post Office's rules, and they have rules just to have rules. And if you don't, you have to go back and start all over again. So they make it as inconvenient as possible. So if you do it, just know that it's a long game, and you should have more than just something that goes out every month to that area. There should be some other acknowledgement of you creating your avatar that belongs in that area. So who wants to talk about geographical farming? That Raquel, have you ever done that? Tim, do you do any of that?
I don't. I'm not. It's a great, smart thing, but I don't do any of that right now.
Okay.
So how about you, Raquel?
Yeah, we do. We farm, obviously Dundee, because that's where we live. I will say that I think it's one of those things that you have to do it and you have to stick to it and you have to be consistent. I don't personally, and I apologize if it's loud. We have cleaners here today. Could you ask them to just
Stop cleaning.
clean elsewhere for a minute? I finally broke down and hired someone, like literally finally, because I'm such a control freak. And I'm like, and I've already rescheduled her twice. And now I'm like, hey, can you not do this?
Don't clean so loud.
Just can you not clean so loud? I know. And they're doing such a great job. She's like literally right outside my office though. So I'm kind of like, so yeah, I think it's one of those things that if you're going to farm an area, you figure out where you're going to farm and you've got to make it manageable time-wise, financially wise, you know, you got to be able to do it. And I think you have to do it on some kind of a consistent basis, whether can
you go deeper into time-wise and financially wise? Like,
yes.
Talk about that a bit.
I think you have to, I don't think people realize when they look at talking about farming a neighborhood, and now I live in Dundee in Midtown, so there's no subdivision to speak of. So a lot of people will farm Willowwood, Hillsborough, the Ridges, you know, they'll farm an actual subdivision, but I don't think what people realize is how many homes are actually in a subdivision. And so you've got to ask yourself, like, how much time do you have and how much money do you have? Because it can really add up if you're going to be doing this on a monthly basis. Do you do it every other month? Do you do it 4 times a year? And do you mail it to everyone? You know, and what happens a lot of times is like with us, we had just literally said, we're just going to pick 1,000 addresses. We have our sphere that we market to, like our friends, our neighbors, the people that we actually know. And then we said, okay, we're going to add 1,000 people. Well, 1,000 people literally got like this much of the Dundee neighborhood. And so we ended up saying, look, Jeff French does quite a bit north. So we're really going to focus on south because that's where we live. All of us live south of Dodge. And that's, you know, we just figured there's plenty of business here for everybody. And then we do market to all the people that we know north, you know, all of our friends and family, except for that Tim Reeder guy over there. We don't market to him. So, you know, and so I think it's just important to find out what you're comfortable with, and you can always make it bigger. But I think at the end of the day, anytime you're farming something, farming to me is not something that's going to generate business. I don't know how to say this. Like I wouldn't farm a neighborhood and expect people to start calling you right away. To me, it's something that helps with your foundation of your business. And we get quite a bit of business off of it. But I mean, it's also because we've been farming the same neighborhood for, I don't know, 20 years or so, 15, 20 years. And so people keep getting the same recipe card from us and the same mailer. And so they see my name over and over again to the point where they're like, okay, fine, I will just call her. So I think when you're going to farm a neighborhood, I think it's just part of your foundation of your business. And I think you've got to make it manageable. So figure out how much, and manageable is, you know, are you hiring somebody to do the marketing? Is this something you're doing yourself? Can you print that many off? Can you mail that many? Can you come up with that much, you know, content every month, every other month? Audra does a great job with those Canva templates. I mean, those are plug and play. So if you wanted to just, for the most part, take that and put it into whatever you're putting out there, just sit down and make yourself like a marketing calendar. I'm such a paper person. I like to see things, like multiple things at one time. So I will print out like blank calendars and just literally sit there and like put down, like we mail out recipe cards every other month. It's very old school. I don't know. For us, it's just always worked. It's not something I think that I would jump on the bandwagon today, but for us, it's just always been out there and people like them. So we just keep doing them.
So you have a theme for that? Do you have a
Yeah, we just no,
because there's a camp that is like, don't mail out recipe cards, and then there's I can see where your mother and father have been in this business for years. I mean, your brother's in the business. You know you probably have like a lock on doing something like that many people would not get away with. So
and that's the thing. It's like we always say in this business. I mean, and you'll find out, especially the longer you're in the business, you'll have a transaction where you'll be like, I cannot believe that agent does that amount of business. But then you always have to remind yourself there's someone for everyone in this business, and you've just got to find what works for you. Because what works for Aubrey Hess does not work for my partner Trace, you know, and what Tim does doesn't work for me and vice versa. It just, everybody, you know, we have a lot of crossover, but you have to be you and you have to find what works for you. And if you're not a foodie, if you're not into food, if you don't like recipe
Right.
cards and stuff like that, it's kind of a moot point. It becomes just some kind of a cold marketing piece that doesn't mean anything. For us, we try to make the recipe. Well, that's the goal. We try to make the recipe, but at this point, I think I'd have to hire someone to make it because there's a lot of frozen food in our house these days because no one's ever home. But my biggest thing was I wanted to provide something to people that they might keep, even if they don't cook. They might look at the recipe card and go, oh, my friend Shelly cooks, and so she's going to give it to her. So now my name's being passed around. If it's just a cute tchotchke card with a funny saying or a little household tip, I feel like that stuff just gets thrown away. I have had clients over the years, or clients, I should say, people that we've marketed to call and ask for the recipes. We've actually had business referred because I send a recipe card to an address here and they referred us to a friend of theirs. You know, it happens, but I think if you're going to farm a neighborhood, you have to figure out what's manageable for you. How are you doing it? Like the company we use is called Sensations. We literally purchase everything at the beginning of every year. They mail everything out. They take care of everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So stop and talk about that.
Yeah. So when I first got in the business, I used to buy all of the recipe cards and then I would print out labels and I would sit here. And I think I did, when I was on my own, I did about 300 or 400. And I sat here every month and I literally sat down and just in front of the TV, put labels on these cards, sorted them by zip code, went to the post office. I did all of that grunt work and stuff, which is something that I think you have to do so that you can appreciate what needs to be done to be successful, because then you can look back and go, okay, I'm just going to pay you to do it. Cause well, first of all, it gets done. There were a few months that didn't get mailed out when I was doing it myself. But yeah, we eventually got to the point where we just pay this company Sensations. We just pick, they have like different, if you go on their website, they have all these different recipe groups. And so we just,
then you give them the mailing list of the area of farming.
Yep.
And you just sit back and you approve of what's going to go out for 12 months.
We actually switched it up about a year ago. We're doing every other month. And the goal was so the goal is every other month they'll get a recipe card. And then we take that same database and we're working on this. The other goal is so they'll get a recipe card one month. The next month they're going to get like kind of Audra's template, like a postcard with some quirky real estate facts, some real estate data. So they're getting something from us every month. It's just every other month it's a recipe card. And then the other months it's something from us personally.
Okay, fantastic.
The other nice thing is with Sensations, with that particular company, we can actually manage the database. So if I pick up a new client, I just go into their website, add that person's name, and then as long as I get it in there before the next mailing goes out, boom, they get a recipe card.
So I can, would you share with us like what that costs? You send 1,000. So you pick 1,000 residents, not 1,000 people, but 1,000 households.
Yeah, we have between our database and the extras, I think we've got about 1,300 or so. And
those go out every single month.
Every other
goes to them every single month, but every other month they send something from this Sensations company.
Right.
And then the other month it's something that you've provided from Better Homes and Gardens or your resources about the marketplace, which is exactly in line with what is advised to do to show your care and your competency, both.
Yeah.
So your kindness, your care, your competency, and those things have to show up. So the care, kindness can be the recipe cards. It's from your heart. It's kind of my mom thing. It's what we like, what we do, what's for your family. And then the other side is like, but wait a minute, I also know how to sell your house and I know what's going on in our marketplace. So I love that.
I don't
By
just
the
burn
way,
cookies. Let me tell you.
Sidebar, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but I posted yesterday Brian Buffini interviewed Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, and it's up on our agent page. I would suggest all of you watch it if you haven't watched it, but on there, he also talks about, he shows his, and it's a slideshow as well as being a document you can send to your clients. It's the state of the market for the US for this year. But one of the pages is it's a fantastic page, and it's called, Are We in a Bubble? And it's the most asked question on Google by 2,500%, which would be a great mailer for you to mail out to your client base. I just wanted to make sure to remember to tell you guys that, because I think that's a really, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck out of that. Or you can use it to post to your clients, or you could send it to them on email. But it's just a one pager that just has all of this information, and it was backed up by the chief economist for the NAR. So
that's actually a really good thing to watch, because I think when you go out into your social circles, whether you're having lunch with a friend at a wedding, or if you run into someone at the gym or Target or wherever, it's inevitable that people are going to ask you what the market is doing. And I think that you get a lot of that fluff talk, where people are like, oh, it's really great. But I think it's better when you can come down and say, no, it's doing really good. And I know a lot of people ask if we're in a bubble, and then you go into something that has some,
it's got meat. And
meat.
he actually
Substance.
gives you, he does a comparison between the 2007-8 in the recession and where we are now, as far as the highest amount of down payment money in the marketplace right now, the most equity, the least amount of junk loans or anything that doesn't have a base. But it actually tells you, so you can intelligently talk, and you can expose your competency even before you feel competent if you really listen. He talks about what's happening with rents, in that they will be rising from 4 to 7% for the next several years. I mean, when people are saying, well, you know what, I think I'm going to ride this market out, and you'll hear this from a buyer that gets frustrated. I'm going to ride this market out, and this is just ridiculous. We've got a client like this right now, and I'm not paying over asking price, and I'm going to rent. Fine, just go look at rents. And then I actually have sent this information to this guy who's like super stubborn, and just said, here's what it's going to look like in 2 years. Not only our house is going to be, increased in price, but also interest rates. And here's what rents are going to look like. So, so having that information, I think, is fantastic. And if you can provide it on a regular basis, you already have the attention of the farm. It's perfect.
It's interesting you say that, because one thing I don't think people realize is that people see through and sometimes I just say things, but people can see through bullshit.
Yeah.
So just because you're a realtor and you're the only realtor in your social circle doesn't mean that people are going to admire you or look up to you just because you are the realtor. I think you still need to prove that you are competent and you are good at what you do. And by doing that, you come up, like what Carol was saying, you come up with those details, those facts, the actual figures. You come up with, solid reasons why things are happening, versus just this fluff that that you hear out there. And that's kind of what it's just BS that people talk. And I think when you can prove that you are truly competent and you are the professional and you do have the information, then your friends in your sphere and stuff, they will actually respect you and they will want to use you and refer you. And that's all just part of the whole, circle of real estate. You can't just pass the test and be the realtor, You know, it's like the stockbroker. It's like the friend that got his
Yeah, right.
SEC license. I'm like, good job. You
Or
know,
the I used to be a realtor person. Those are the ones my favorite. One thing that I remember, I'll always remember, is one of my mentors told me this years ago. If you learn something new and you teach it, you turn around and teach it within 24 hours, you own it. So I will always, I
I
love
like that.
I love coaching and the timing that I have, because it's like every day I've got at least 1 or 2 coaching hours, either my own or mostly with somebody else, but they're in between these different things that I'm learning stuff, and I'll turn around and work it into my coaching, and then I own it. Like just that stuff yesterday, I listened to Bold Predictions. I had 2 coachings and I taught it as soon as I was finished to a couple of different people and shared it. I'm sharing it with you guys right now. And that's how you become comfortable, so that when you're talking to a client and they say, hey, are we in a bubble? And you can answer without saying, yes, we are, no, we're not, I don't know, what's a bubble? You can just say, here's some really interesting things that you might want to know. And then you just start quoting those things. So there's got to be time for that.
I think that's important. And is anybody here farming a neighborhood right now? Have you guys started?
Trace, what do you
Tracy? Yeah. How many are you farming? Roughly.
How many residents?
Yeah.
I'm starting out small, and I'm just going into a place where, I had sold a house. So I'm doing like 800.
That's small.
That's
Is that not small?
That's not
I
small
thought
at
that
all.
was small.
No.
That's not small. That's
Okay.
like 400, 300, 400 bucks a month. Probably.
Yeah.
That's not small. And I
Yeah.
think the one thing that you want to do too is kind of build on layers. So when we farm our neighborhood, anytime, and I say this as, and I haven't done this recently because we've just been so slammed, and we hired a new assistant, and like things will get back on track. But right now we're kind of like regrouping. But take that and you farm that neighborhood, and anytime you have a listing in there, those are the priorities. You want to make sure you send out like just listed or just sold cards, which sounds kind of archaic, but I think mail is a lost art. People like to get mail. They like to get handwritten notes. They like to get things in the mail addressed to them. They like pictures. And I think when you're farming a neighborhood, if you can farm it and then do that just listed or just sold card, you can give them stats on the neighborhood. That's another great one. Like, hey, here's everything that's sold in your neighborhood in the last 6 months, or look at the comparison between spring of 20 and 21, or don't look at it, And then the other nice thing is if you're going to do any kind of open houses, do open houses as much as you can in that farming neighborhood so that people can get to know you face to face. I did actually have Nebraska Realty call me to do an open house on one of my listings. I've never had that happen in 20 years. Blew my mind. Anyway, totally sidebar. Make sure, I would personally say that make sure it's a Better Homes agent or a listing. But if you add on those layers, and then like we also advertise in the neighborhood newsletter, and we provide the sold information for just the general neighborhood solds every month. So I mean, you just get all those little pieces, and then literally it's the Olvers group here, the Olvers group there, the Olvers group here. I mean, we actually have a bus bench, which they moved. Dad always wanted the bus bench, so we got the bus bench, which we had to take Dad's face off of it because they kept putting swastikas in his forehead. So the only good news is they moved it over by my favorite store, Mod Lines. So I'm like, I must have to go into Mod Lines to go shopping for check out the bus bench. But I think if you just build on those layers, don't just send them a postcard. You need to be present. You need to be involved. You need to continue providing that farming area with more information than you do just your general.
Yeah, just something that comes in the mail that can be in the trash.
And I think if you do that, then you become the first person they think of when they're out with their friends and someone says, oh my gosh, you know what? This market is so crazy, but interest rates are so good. I think we're talking about buying a house. Who do I call? You should call Tracy. She markets our neighborhood, man. She knows everything. She's always sending us data. I see her having open houses. She stopped by the fundraiser thing or whatever. I mean, and it's all just, you're the first person they think of when they think of real estate. I mean, it could even be something as simple as a mailer like, hey, just letting you know, things are kind of slowing down or things are speeding up, but I've always got all of this resource. Tim's group does a great job with making sure that that we're not just realtors. We're not just buying and selling houses. I also have this amazing database of plumbers, electricians, painters, concrete work people. I've got this amazing database that I've built up. Use me for that, you know? And so you become this kind of overall resource. And that's not something that I think that's done overnight. And that's why I go back to, if you're going to farm a neighborhood, you want to make it manageable, because you want to make it like the foundation of your business, kind of like everything that kind of makes the rest of your business even better. And I think if you could build on layers, mailings, recipe cards, neighborhood newsletters, if there's a neighborhood, event of some kind, try to provide something for that, or try to at least be present for it, sponsored by, or at least show up and volunteer, that kind of stuff. I think all of that just layers onto it, and it becomes just a really solid foundation. And the reason I say farming a neighborhood isn't something that you're going to start in January and by, July, you're going to have people calling you. It could happen, but I don't think that it's something that's going to happen right away. I think farming is something where you have to gain the trust of the people that you're marketing to. And so I think if you make it manageable and stick with it and really cultivate that number of people that you do, I think you'll have an incredible farming database. And like Carol was saying at the beginning, nobody owns a farm neighborhood, right? In fact, I remember when we were at CBS Home, they tried to say, okay, so Carol, you're doing this, and Tim,
Oh
you're
yeah,
doing that.
they actually did. They
No,
actually
yeah.
wrote it down.
They did. They tried to tell people, like, you can't farm a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of like,
So and so
what?
owns this neighborhood. So and so owns this neighborhood. Yeah, they actually did like a little.
They tried.
I was part of that meeting in management, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? We're
Oh my
actually going to be like identifying this. Like, I can't step into that neighborhood."
No.
Yeah.
At
It
the
was-
end of the day, if whoever is farming that neighborhood isn't doing a good job, take it over and show them how it's done.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody is doing a fantastic job, I'm not saying you can't go in there, but I think that you should realize that you might have a very big uphill battle, especially if that person has a really good following. I know some of these agents and some of these subdivisions, especially, I mean, they, not to say they own them, but they do. They own them not because it's like a birthright, but because they earned it.
Yeah.
Hey, a couple, can I?
Yeah,
Do you
jump
mind if I
in,
just
please.
jump in with a couple very, very brief thoughts? And first of all, it's scintillating. Carol and Raquel are giving just invaluable information. So I'm so appreciative of their input. A couple things on farming. We have evaluated this, so I'll try to come back to the original conversation, then to this conversation, and try to end very quickly. So first things first, farming is a job interview. So it's quality over quantity. So whatever you're doing is an opportunity for you to present yourself to the marketplace. So the templates that Audra has astutely developed are great roadmaps for ensuring that you're going to have good content and not have to reinvent the wheel, but yet gives you the autonomy to create your own brand. And I think that the power of those two can be extremely, extremely successful if you implement it correctly. The other thing is that it is expensive. I'm not saying it's not, but we do make a commitment to the agent. So any printing that anybody does is 100% paid for. We pay for the printing, and we don't track it. Anybody who wants to print, you want to send 10,000 pieces? O'Gorman does. He pays the postage. We pay for the printing, and he's got a $25 to $35 million business depending on the year, based on that. And the lion's share of it was built on that. So he's built $1 million GCI business out of that as a concept, not exclusively, but it certainly hasn't hurt. That's where he got his start. So, but just, I think it's important to remember that anything that you do that you put your name on ultimately reflects on you. So if you send a piece out and it's garbage, it can actually be to the detriment of your business. So what I would say is focus on quality in whatever you do. Back to Raquel's point about people wanting to get mail. When there was a seismic shift to digital in the middle 2000s and late, during the recession, kind of that idea of personal touch or snail mail went out of vogue. It is powerful and still underutilized. In regard to kind of going into, and duplicity of farming areas, I will tell you there are still many voids in neighborhoods. And I would tell you, you should go find a neighborhood that isn't being farmed, and there's many of them by any company. Because if what we found is when multiple people farm a neighborhood, regardless of their affiliation, it diminishes the power of that. And so what happens is when 3 or 4 people go after, I'll just use an example, Regency, it gets diluted and it's exponentially to the detriment of your efforts. So if you go to one neighborhood that's not being farmed, and you can actually kind of get a foothold in there, and there are many of them that aren't being farmed by any company, any agent at any company. Believe it or not, they're still out there because we did the analysis. At least a year ago there were. We haven't done it recently, but there is a lot of opportunity. So that's not saying, oh, I don't want people to not play nice in the family. It's not necessarily about that, although there's a component of that. It's more about just getting a true bang for your buck. In regard to and I know I'm talking fast, I'm trying to get it over with so I don't waste everybody's time, but on the economic front, on the NAR economist, who is, by the way, Carol was correct in saying he's a very good economist. Buffini uses him with regularity because of his consistency. He's got good bedside manner, and he's very, very sharp, and he's very pragmatic, and he has very good perspective and a good track record. And I also subscribe to his findings and have tracked them, and they've been accurate. The difference between now and 2008 that people forget that was evident in his conversation is we have exactly a third of the listings coming on. And I'm at a conference right now in Colorado Springs, and it was very compelling. And they talked at great length about the lack of inventory and how that's affects. Because at the end of the day, supply and demand is what drives markets, right? That's what's giving us prices that are $20,000 over the list price. And that's what in 2008 created the problem. But in 2008, because there was so much speculation, people flipping that didn't have, that had those fraudulent loans, they were buying 6, 7 houses where they had no income, Florida and other places. Those folks, they don't exist today because the underwriting is more difficult. So to suggest that am I going to tell you that prices are going to go up 15% in Omaha in perpetuity? We better all hope not, right? Because then we have affordability issue, which is another issue. But to equate our economic environment to 2008 for the purposes of trying to discern whether or not we've got a value crisis is apples and oranges. And it's fundamentally irrational from the standpoint of identifying the data. What is more likely, in my opinion, and I think economists, I'm regurgitating what a lot of economists say, is that we'll ultimately have a slowdown. The only way from the standpoint of demand will lessen a bit, because listings, it was interesting. We had some data consultants on the stage this morning, and they were talking about the fact that the listings are constant from the last year. So the listings are constant from actually the last couple of years, even going into 19, taking 20 out as an anomaly. The difference is that the buyer pool just continues to grow because of the millennial population actually participating. So just kind of recapping, it's a demand and supply issue that drives it. And so long as interest rates and inflation isn't super significant in a very short period of time. So for example, if interest rates go from 3 to 6% in the course of a year, that's going to create a substantial downturn in the real estate market. If interest rates go up from 3 to 6 over the next 5 years, it will be inconsequential from that standpoint. But we are in an inflationary environment. There are some concerns about inflation, ultimately affordability. These things are all real. I think a slowdown in the next few years is coming. All markets shift. But you have to remember, for us, we don't necessarily benefit from markets that are this robust. For a real estate agent, the best opportunity is a market that's in equilibrium. We want buyers and sellers to have equal footing and have adequate inventory to serve the buyer and adequate inventory to serve the seller. So when people say, oh, isn't this wonderful? Yeah, we're putting a few more units in the ground. But look at the Omaha sales historically. It has nothing to do necessarily with, because in 2008, it was horrible, right? Because you could carry 30 listings and couldn't sell one. Now it's horrible because you carry 30 buyers and you can't sell one, right? So either way you look at it, it can be challenged. What we have to remember is in Omaha in the last 25 or 30 years, the reality is the units have not fluctuated that much. And as an agent, we're a microcosm of, the 30,000 units that are going to sell in the Omaha metro and beyond, 30,000 sides, 15,000 units. All we need is 30 of them or 40 of them or whatever our goal is, right? So to worry about the economy and from a buyer standpoint or from preserving their investment, there's always fundamentally more risk for the shorter duration of their tenure. So if somebody said to me, hey, I want to live here for 18 months, would that give me some pause? But that risk is there in any market because shorter tenures don't allow for a normalization of markets. That's true in anything. If I told you, hey, buy this stock tomorrow, but you've got to sell it in 18 months no matter what, that's not a good position to be in. But if you said, hey, buy this blue chip stock, even at a premium today, because it's got great fundamentals, good house, and it's going to appreciate for the next 20 years, and we plan to be here for 10 or 20 years, then it's still a wise investment if it's a good asset. So I'm going to shut up now, but I just wanted to share some thoughts on those particular items because I think it's important to kind of get some perspective. But your guys are doing a better job than me, so I'm just going to listen.
That was great. Don,
Oh,
that's right.
That was great.
I don't know if you guys know, but you just got like a pile of really, really good information that will be helpful. And
That was really, really good. I actually wanted to ask too, for your guys's like resources for information and data for the local marketplace, just to help educate myself so that whenever I am having conversations, I feel like more comfortable and feel like I know what I'm talking about. So do you guys have any resources? I've started listening to Brian Buffini's podcast every day, but any other like local marketplace resources to get some information?
I subscribe to Inman. What's it called? It's
Inman.
it's an Inman Connect. It's on. It comes over on email every day. I find that to be a super broad perspective of many things going on in the real estate market, not only from the perspective of the agent, but the broker, the brokerage, and national news. And they have a realtor price. It looks like it's higher, but they have a realtor price of $99 a year, and you just have to ask for it. If you have to call them, but it's $99 a year. It's probably going to be one of your best sources. So that I listen to, I read at least 4 to 5 different circulations a day. I spend, and it's part of my goals every day, I spend nothing less than 2 hours a day on my own personal education so I can do my job better. And I take it from all kinds of different sources. I'll listen to something from CNN, and I'll listen to something from Fox News, and I'll listen to something from MSNBC. I want to see what everybody's saying about the same exact sentence. Take one sentence, get 3 different perspectives on it. But I also want to see how these kinds of things have relationship to our job as the trusted advisor. I talk to other agents in other marketplaces. I talk to agents in this marketplace. I try to do something about all of that every single day. And to me, that's my job as a realtor and as an expert. And so Inman, I think, would be the best for starters. Anybody else like you have something that you read that you really, RIS Media is another one, and that's free. You can subscribe to RIS Media, and it will also give you, it kind of gives more, I think it has more, it's more opinionated, a little bit more opinionated. But there's several different.
On local stats, though, we share those weekly, the local stats on our page. I mean, it's not super in-depth stuff, but we do have that stuff that goes out weekly that you can share, and you can build your own narrative around those statistics. So the mindset behind it, we haven't pitched it as hard as we should. The mindset behind it is you can take some data points, you can analyze those data points for our local market, and you can turn that into whatever messaging. Obviously, it needs to be accurate and insightful, but you can create a dialogue around it, because there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. I forget the guy who said that, or gal, but it's brilliant, right? Because we can manipulate data into a ton of different ways, but we do see trend lines, and we can build a narrative around them if it's logical. So I would look for those statistics that we post them on is it on the private Facebook page weekly?
Yeah.
We get it on email. We get it on email too, don't we? But
it's on both.
it's on the private Facebook page. But I would say that just as soon as you see that, turn around and share it in your Facebook page with, like what Tom said, have some kind of narrative. My narrative sometimes can be as little as, you ready now? How about now? What do you think? I mean, it'll be something that just like maybe nothing, not a big broad perspective or anything. And then just a little, hey, if you want to know more, call me, or ask a question. Ask the question that I asked you guys when I posted that thing is, do you know the most asked question on Google right now?
What is it?
Are we in a bubble?
Oh, that's what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, but something like, I'm not using that as an example. It's okay, Raquel. Turn around and teach
It's a really
it.
long year. Okay.
Turn around and teach it to somebody. You'll own it in 24 hours. Go teach one of your kids.
I will. Yeah. Well, we laugh because that's
Actually
the
used
joke
to-
in our house.
I used to do that to Max when he was little. And he'd be in the car with me, and I'd be driving him to preschool, and I would be talking. I would just like start talking about stuff. And he told me one day, Cece, I can't buy a house. I'm not old enough. Like, because I used to do if you were thinking of buying or selling a home, or you had a friend or family member, do you have a realtor? And he would laugh for a while, and then he was like, I'm not old enough for this.
I'm not old enough.
Yeah.
Susie, I'm not qualified. Sorry.
Yes.
There's a lot of great sources out there, you guys. I think there's a grow report too that I get with new restaurants and new venues and stuff that are coming. You can go to the Chamber of Commerce. I think another great source, and it's not like, I love like Inman and RIS, and then we get those weekly data numbers. And I think, you just take a little bit from this, a little bit from that, and, you make your big picture. I do think it's important to look at things nationally as well as locally, because what's happening nationally may not even affect us, but it does eventually.
Mhm.
It's just when some of the prices in when the market kind of tanked in, what was it, 10 or whenever it started, the best comment I heard was, we didn't get invited to the party, so we didn't feel the hangover. And
Yeah.
all of the numbers around here, we did not drop like they were in Arizona, California, Florida and stuff, but we didn't see those extremes. So I think it's good to understand nationally versus locally, because we are our own little niche, just like any other local area is. But it's also important, I think, to attend realtor events. I don't care if that's something like the Turkey Bowl or the Toys for Tots, or if you go to the board office to do an actual CE class, now that we can all be back in person. It is amazing when you run into a realtor friend that and then they know another realtor, and then all of a sudden you find out about a new development and it kind of piques your interest. So I think it's just a lot of being involved will help give you a little bit more knowledge base, if you will, on what's going on in the industry. Because there's no way, without understanding it, I think by talking some of it through, you could, on a piece of paper, you can look at a new development and understand that it's, 192 acres and it was so many billions to build and blah, 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 blah. That doesn't give you a feel for actually what's going to be there,
There's some local Facebook pages too that are really good that you can utilize to then turn around and share. Omaha Foodie Group, that talks about different restaurants, and
Omaha History Club is a great one.
History Club. Tim
House.
You guys do such an amazing job of highlighting old and historical homes, and who can make like a post on Facebook of a freaking doorknob and get like 40 people that respond? His team does that, so there's things that people are interested in at a micro level, and then at a macro level and then at a much bigger. I'm a global thinker, so I always have to go out and then come back to what the local is. But the local, I also, and I didn't want to ignore this, I read the local stuff too. I can't do the Omaha World Herald anymore, so I do like summary stuff of that. It's filled with too many things that don't have, that it's not quick enough.
Opinionated.
Well, I can't do it quick enough, and that's my thing. It's I want to make my trip work for me, in as least amount of time. So
I think it's good to just kind of dabble in all of these little areas. And once you start subscribing to things like, and you can get parts of Inman for free. Like there's enough there that you can decide if that's something that you want to subscribe to. The real
business page.
What?
The business pages too. The business pages of your local stuff that shows like the Chamber of Commerce page. Shows like new businesses that are coming into town, and if you know people that live in, like look at California, like all those huge businesses, Tesla, and all the big major tech companies that moved out and went to Austin. That's why Austin, Texas is so big. So if you knew people that worked for those companies, where they're going, you can make referrals, or that if they're coming to Omaha. So I just think you need to have a little piece of all of it so that you are the trusted advisor, not just how much will my house sell for.
Well, the other nice thing is if you have little pieces, you'll find what interests you and then you can dig deeper.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very much I just want the graphs, the tidbit, the nuts and bolts, the summary. And then if I want more information, I'll click on it and read the whole article. I couldn't sit down and read a whole article on the development of a subdivision because 90% of it wouldn't even be retained. I just need the nuts and bolts, and then enough to know that it's out there, enough to know that it's there. And if I need to dig further, I can dig further. So I think it's just a matter of paying attention to those emails that come across for the opportunities, whether it's a CE class, a realtor event, get involved in like WCR. They have a lot of great events. I think they try to do them monthly, if I remember right. They have a lot of great speakers. Anytime you can go to listen to a speaker, I don't care if it's somebody talking about the power of positivity or if it's the CFO for NAR and he's the chief economist. You're going to get something out of it. And all of that is going to make you a much better, more well-rounded realtor. Because the one thing in this business that you're not going to see in most other businesses is our client can be anyone. It can be the blue collar worker making $10 an hour. It can be the multimillionaire who, couldn't care less and he just wants to buy that $1 million home. Most businesses are going to have a little bit more of a tighter niche. We can deal with anybody. And while you'll have, your own little niche out of that, you'll find that you will have clients that are so different and they care about so many different things. And you've got to have enough knowledge to know where to look to get more information, or at least be able to talk intelligently about the information. So
I think there's
soak it all up.
One thing that I will say, and I know there's a lot of press out right now about this is the first time ever in history, well, in recorded real estate history, that there are more realtors than there are homes on the market. There's 1,100,000 homes on the market. There's 1,400,000 realtors in the National Realtors Association of Realtors. I think you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt, because one of the things that Lawrence Yun said yesterday, and whoever's listened to this, I don't know if you really heard this, but it used to be 20% of the agents did 80% of the business. Did you hear that? What did he say? You're shaking your
I
head.
didn't hear that, but I've heard.
Well, he said
Now
that
it's like
now
90,
it's probably 90 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10% of the realtors are doing 90% of the business. And
I'm going to have to go, but let me say one thing really quick.
yeah, we have 5 minutes here. So
Yeah. I always kind of come from the school of thought. I don't care how many agents are out there. I don't care how much you're selling. I'm doing what I need to do.
Right.
And I know what I need to do. And if I'm not doing it and I know what I need to do, that's my fault. If you're selling 40 and I'm selling 10, that's fine. You're doing what you do. You do your business your way. There's a lot of agents that sell a lot more than I do. I would never run my business the way some agents run their business. I have a, a certain level of standard that I think that I need to provide. And so you just have to, I hate, my kids say this all the time, you do you. But
Yeah.
honestly, I love it. You do.
It is.
Find what works for you, challenge yourself, set your goals, and stick to them. And don't give up on them just because something's not happening in 3 months. It might take a year. And once that gets there and it solidifies and it becomes a foundation, it will help you grow. I promise you that. So make realistic goals, but challenge yourself and stick to it. Even on the days when it's hard. Those are the days that it's most important.
Well, and you do you. I love that. I love that theme, because actually we're building an entire page. Page 4 is about you do you. It's authenticity. And all
I
the
have to go. So if you need me, call me anytime.
love you. Thank you.
Bye.
All the people that will be coming are going to talk about, not about how to do them, but about how to do you. And you guys are going to get so much out of it that you'll just be kind of overwhelmed after 2 days.
That was really good timing, because that is the theme of the year, essentially. Do you, do you. Yeah.
Really, I think we actually should use that somewhere in our, authenticity. You do you.
It's got to be one of the classes. You do you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, Todd Nordstrom's class would very much fit that way. Yeah, who you are is good enough just the way you're good enough just the way you are, I think is.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, how was that for answering your questions, you guys?
Raquel is such an amazing team player. And I can say this because she's not here. The woman's incredible. We worked for years to recruit her and her father. Her mother was, just so you all know, her mother was one of Omaha's most loved, wonderful realtors. And she passed away of cancer a couple years ago. And so the whole family there were the 3 of them. Were a team, and Hetty was the head of it, and Hetty was incredible. So Raquel and her father are walking in the footsteps of Hetty. So,
and
wonderful people.
In emails, you see that from Jerry Alvers, he always sends out little jokes and says you can throw them away if you don't. That's her dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're wonderful people.
Yeah. Okay, so any last little question statements? Did you guys learn anything today?
Learned a lot. I do have one quick question. Tom was talking about how I guess all you guys were at, how there's so many unfarmed neighborhoods. How do you go about finding the unfarmed neighborhoods?
Let me ask you, where do you live, first of all?
I live in a very heavily farmed neighborhood.
Okay, so
I live in Rockbrook.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how they found it, to be honest. But coincidentally, at a meeting that we're going to have in 1 hour, one of the things I'm bringing to the table again is whether or not we should be starting to put together a list of who's farming what. Because this has come to us several times, and we've chosen not to get involved. Because we don't want to be what they were talking about. CBS Home years ago used to. You got that neighborhood and nobody else could farm that neighborhood. Well, that's unethical. We just can't. You're independent contractors. You can do what you want. But I think it's about time for us to circle back around and have a registry of the neighborhoods that you're farming. But that's just going to be our company. So when Tom said that about how they did some reconnaissance and looked it up, and I don't know how they did it. So I'll see if maybe I can get an answer for you, but I don't know how they did it.
We're going to talk about it. So we'll get back to you.
I was gonna call all my friends because they live in different neighborhoods and just ask them hey, do you feel like you get a lot of mail from realtors? And then if they say yes, that's what I was gonna do, because I kind of was thinking the same question, how to find out.
Well, that's not only a good idea, Hannah, but I would also go the next step and say, is anything valuable to you?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Anything that you open every month, or because there's I get maybe 2 or 3 things a month. And I think now people are taking me off of their mailing list, but I get maybe 2 or 3 things a month. And one of them I love because it just tells me what's sold in Ridgefield and and Bryn Mawr and Candlewood, because it's the little tri-area that I live in. And I am interested in that. So I look at it. I tear it up and throw it in the trash, but I look at it. So yeah, and something that I don't have to open. I hate opening things. So, you know, your friends can give you all kinds of information. You can actually make that trip work for you and ask them out to coffee and just say, can I pick your brain? That's Tim's famous statement. Can I
Pick your brain. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then when you're done, guess what you do? You send a personal note. You just did 3 things at the same time. Okay. All right. So we'll see you guys Monday.
Yep.
No, Monday's holiday.
Oh, you're right. Monday is a holiday.
Yes.
Ish.
Okay. So Monday would be, okay, here we are. Monday would be the part 2 of Sellers. And I'm going to look and see what the following Monday is. We'll do both of them we're going to do both of them together.
Okay.
How about that? We'll do part 2 of Sellers, and then we'll do whatever the following one. So you guys will get access to next week's, but we need to, is Rhonda still sending stuff for us, or are we doing it?
We've been doing it. Let's talk about that today.
Yeah,
Solidify it.
let's send out an announcement, because I don't want to forget, and the weekend's coming up. So
Are you going to be face to face at our meeting at 2:00, Carol?
yeah, I have a coaching from 1 to 1:30, 1:40, and then I'm leaving to come there. So if I'm not there right at 2, I'm on my way.
We'll see you there and we'll talk about
Indian Hills. Okay. Bye.
it. Okay. Thanks,
guys.
everybody. See you in a
Thanks
bit.
for showing up.
Thank you.